The ncert questions first. Children, the very first question is, why was Douglas determined to get over his fear of water? You will write down, Douglas was determined to get over his fear of water because he believed in what Roosevelt has said. All we have to fear is the fear itself. Since he had the great fear of water, he wanted to overcome it. Next question. How did the instructor build a swimmer out of Douglas? You will write down, the instructor understood Douglas and his fear very well. He built a swimmer out of Douglas piece by piece. In the beginning, the instructor put a belt around Douglas. A rope attached to the belt went through a pulley that ran on a overhead cable. The instructor held onto the end of the rope. It went on for 5 days a week, an hour each day. And after 3 months, the author gained confidence. Next, the instructor held the author at the side of the pool. The author just kicked water for many days. Gradually, he was able to move his legs the way he liked. In such different ways, piece by piece, the instructor built a swimmer of the author. The third question, how did Douglas make sure that he conquered the old terror? Even after the instructor was finished, the author feared to be in the pool. Even after the instructor was finished, the author feared to be in the pool alone. However, he took courage and kept swimming along the length of the pool. The swimming in the pool, however, did not satisfy him. He went to different lakes and islands to test himself. Eventually, he was satisfied only when he could repeat the feat of dog Corporan. What is that? That is, he dived in the warm lake and swam across to the other shore and back. After this, he shouted with joy as he had become sure that he had conquered the old terror. So, children, in these questions, we have covered with that why was Douglas determined to get over his fear of water? Why he wanted to overcome it? Secondly, how did the instructor help Douglas to build a swimmer in him? So the instructor, he built a swimmer of the author by teaching him piece by piece, gradually, that means. How did Douglas make sure he conquered the old terror? Actually, William O. Douglas, he had developed an aversion to the water. Twice it happened with him. When he was 3 or 4 years old, his father had taken him to the beach in California. They stood together on the surf and the waves knocked him down. Secondly, when he went to the pool, unpleasant memories were revived. He sat on the side of the pool, and boxer boy, picked Douglas and threw him into the deep end. He wanted to come out to the surface like a cork, but he was unable to do it. So, there and then he developed that fear of water. And how did Douglas make sure he conquered the old terror? That was the terror in him. So, children, he feared, he practiced in the pool, but he was not satisfied. He was not satisfied by his performance. He went to various lakes and islands, even. In the end, when he went to, he dived in the warm lake and he swam across to the shore and he came back also. He swam so much. First, he crossed and then he came back. So, at that moment, he shouted with joy because as he had become sure that he had conquered the old terror. Now, how did Douglas make understanding the text? How did Douglas make clear to the reader the sense of panic that gripped him as he almost drowned? Describe the details that have made the description vivid. Children, we will write down Douglas has given a detailed and vivid description of how the sense of panic gripped him as he almost drowned in the pool. In the beginning, Douglas was frightened, but not frightened out of wits. On the way down, he planned that on touching the ground, he would make a big jump, come to the surface, lie flat on it, and pedal to the edge of the pool. The plan failed. And not once, but thrice. 3 times, children, he attempted, but he was failed. It was then that the stark terror seized him. He was shrieking underwater slowly, even though screams were frozen. Only his heart and the pounding in his head said that he was still alive. Actually, he left the hope, but when he felt that his heart was still pounding and his head was still he can make the decisions, so he thought, okay, I am alive now. Abhi main zinda hu. Then, then all effort ceased. Then all effort ceased. A blackness swept over his brain. It wiped out fear. There was no more panic. He crossed to oblivion. Oblivion means forgetfulness. And the curtain of the life fell. He forgot everything at that time. It was then that someone saved him. It took hours before he was able to walk home unsteadily. Someone jumped in the pool and then saved Douglas at that time. It took hours before he was able to walk home unsteadily. The panic had gripped him so much that it haunted his heart till many days after the incident. He was terrorized. The incident happened, but still, long after that, also, he was still being terrorized by the thought. Next question. How did Douglas overcome his fear of water? Children, overcome his fear of water. We will look. You will not repeat. I'm saying. I'm again repeating. Listen very carefully. You will not write down question number 2. Because question number 2 and question number 3 we have done earlier. How did Douglas make sure that he conquered the old terror? Is one and the same thing. Coming up to the next question, why does Douglas as an adult recount a childhood experience of terror and his conquering of it? What larger meaning does he draw from this experience? Douglas recounts his childhood experience to say that the fear is a most dangerous emotion. Children, fear is a most dangerous emotion. To conquer his fear of water, he had to work hard. He had to work hard for many days, but his account shows that he did the right thing. He draws a larger meaning from his experience. He says that only those who have known stark terror and conquered it, if you conquer your terror, then one can be appreciated. So he says that the writer says to conquer his fear of water, he had to work hard for many days, but his account shows that he did the right thing. He draws a larger meaning from his experience. He says that only those who have known stark terror and conquered it can appreciate his emotion. He says that there is terror only in the fear of death. All that we have to fear is fear itself. Since he had experienced both the sensation of dying and the terror that the fear of it can produce, the will to live somehow grew in intensity. Children, from this answer, we can make it out that he is asking that why does Douglas as an adult recount a childhood experience of terror and his conquering of it? What larger meaning? The larger meaning is that the fear we have is the only thing, and if we overcome that fear, we can regain everything. Children, in case if we overcome our fear, then we can be the conqueror. We have to conquer our fear. And actually, Douglas was suffering from children hydrophobia. So he always feared to venture into water. But with his firm determination, he became free of this fear. So, in this answer, you can also write down one thing that, in his opinion, we have will to survive. Use can survive fully. You can survive fully. Because you have will to survive. So we should also have confidence. We should develop that confidence to face challenges. He tells us that we should develop that firm determination. And if we have strong willpower and firm determination, we ensure success in our life.